to the Village of Peoria Heights CDAP Competitive Public Infrastructure Construction Component, May 6, 2014. Hearing is now called to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Trustee Harn.
Present.
Trustee Carter.
Present.
Trustee Fuller.
Present.
Trustee Reichert.
Present.
Trustee Gett. Trustee Cumming.
Present.
Thank you very much. I guess
I'll take it from here. The hearing purposes are what they are listed on the agenda to obtain citizens' opinions, concessions, and priorities, including a list of all community development housing needs in order of priority, provide program information, and public discussion of the proposed project. I'm going to explain some of this information, especially Roman numerals 4 and 5, by way of the attachments. And in fact, some of the other parts aren't here on the attachments as well, so I'm not going to read all this stuff to you. I'm going to refer to parts of it so you'll get a grasp of the program and what this is about. The program is a Community Development Assistance Program at the federal level, and as I said in the notice, hearing notice, as the Community Development Block Grant Program. That's the federal name from the Housing and the Community Development Act of 1974 as amended. That's what the HCD stands for in the first part of Roman numeral 4. That's the Housing and Community Development Act that passed by Congress in 1974, amended over and over again since then. The primary national objective of the Community Development Act is the benefit to low and moderate income persons. I'll explain how that fits into your project and how your proposal would likely fare under the current rating system. The other objectives include preventing or eliminating slums and blight, and meeting community development needs having a particular urgency. I'll explain how this fits into your proposal as well. The grant ceilings and fund availability and competition and the primary program requirements called under Roman numeral 5, I'll refer you to, which I don't have in front of me. You grab one of the other ones. The attachments, which sorry, excuse me, my package doesn't have it. The first attachment, though, is a synopsis. They're both back-to-back pages. It explains, the first one explains the program as a whole, as the state has designed it and approved by HUD, splitting the funds on it the way it has splits them up from the public infrastructure, including infrastructure plus design, and housing programs. Then, let me get that sheet. There's a handout I just have. The first is synopsis that breaks down the various components of the program as provided by the state. The public infrastructure one is the primary one. It garners the most funds. And economic development is another one that is available. I've done several of those as well. And there's also a housing program. The community revitalization area is on an as-needed basis, and it is not currently among the typically funded and set-aside budget for this program. As you read through the back of that sheet, second page, it refers to that all funds must benefit low and moderate income persons. This fits, I want to explain that and how that works with the Roman numeral 4 description on the benefit to low and moderate income persons as the primary national objective. That is the objective most projects have to meet, with the exception of those having a certain urgency. A tornado, for example, a few years ago hit a community. Particular urgency was the reason for that one being funded, and there's others like that as well, time to time. But for the most part, it is not, because the state, over a 3-year span, because this program is not appropriated, but it is reauthorized on a 3-year basis and appropriated annually by the Congress. 70% of the funds they spend over a 3-year period must benefit low and moderate income persons. So their priority is for projects that do that. And the second sheet, fact sheet, is on the infrastructure and design infrastructure component by itself. I provided us extra detail on that because that is the component which you were, the hearing is held tonight, and what the application is intended to apply to later this month. As you can see here, I provide the information on the funding source, the disbursement of funds. Deadline is June 2nd. Eligible applicants include cities, townships, counties, villages, municipalities, in other words. Disbursement are by competitive application. Eligible activities, those listed here, I'm not going to read all those, but essentially any water system component for the most part, and sanitary sewer, storm sewer, things like that are eligible. Also, ineligible activities are listed here. You couldn't get a grant to do Village Hall, for example. Now you would get accessibility issues before, but they've not done away with that funding. It's still eligible, it's don't fund it. The grant ceiling for this component is $450,000. I provided the grant ceiling for the other components also in the synopsis in the first 2 pages. Also I provide information regarding how much component of that you have designed, included. In this case you don't, and a $200,000 emergency. $11 million is what the state has said it will set aside for these funds, for this particular component, as public infrastructure plus design only. Now, a part of this is they will also have it set aside for rural water projects. They're funding those a little bit separately, but they're all in the same pot of money. They just rate them in and handle them separately. The competition information provided here in 2013, 105 applications worth $39 million were submitted, and they funded 23 or $8,829,000, plus 7 emergency projects. Provide here, not to go through all the details in the rating criteria, but I would give you an overview of that. One thing is, if you may be familiar from discussions a few years ago about potentially applying for funds for the water project come up from the bluff, and in that time, they were rating communities for their financial health. If you had too much money, they would deduct points for your application. And for also there were communities that were too little money would be deducted as well. They've done away with that. What they've done is make a sliding scale for low moderate income benefit. And so the higher the benefit numbers, what they used to do, did it for maybe 20 years that way, got away from that, now they're back to that as a way of rating applications. And health and safety threat was before with a threshold. They determined you just had enough information to be a threat, then you were in the door. Then they rated other things like financial need and other things. They also rated poverty. They went doing that too. That's a different score from low moderate income. So now they give you a health and safety threat score. Readiness is a big deal. 50%, as you see, potential score. They give you 50 points and start deducting if you don't have certain things. And the big component of that is, for a project like yours, is a permit to construct, which you have. So of what I've looked at, you see the list on here, I don't see a reason for you to be deducted any points from that. The one resolution that's on the board agenda tonight will address one of these little minor points. Other points are deducted if we leave things out that we should not leave out, maps and things of that nature. We'll make sure those are in there. So you shouldn't lose any points on that. And leverage is funded is a point system as well. They'll deduct points if you don't have a commitment for spending your own funds, because you're responsible for 25% of the project cost. So that's how those things are deducted, how the applications are rated. I haven't a concept of what that would be for you, but I'll explain that if you'd like. That, I think, covers, in a lecture format, the information on the program. Doesn't give all its history, but it does give you a synopsis of how the state has it structured, a snapshot. It has the funding limit, set-asides for those various components, and their grant ceilings and their deadlines are all in there. And those sort of things we'd hope were, recorded in the minutes, at least in some detail, not all of that information, but the fact that it was provided. And I mentioned the items in the Roman numeral 5 here, except the review period. Review period for approval or denial, when the question was asked before the meeting, it would appear that it's several months. Not saying it's sooner than that, because they don't know that it's going to be. They give just a real brief history on that. The gentleman running the program today, it's been in that position for about a year and a half, I think, and inherited the rating system last year, and it seemed like it took forever to get the applications approved. Not quite sure what the details were, why that happened, but it was approved or denied. They reviewed this is the new system, the rating system. That may drag things out, and they don't have a lot of staff. They don't have the staff they used to have years ago. So I can't tell you for sure if it'll take 6 months, 10 months, I don't know. But it's not going to be, it's going to be more than 2, I'm sure of that. Now I want to mention here, before I get to the discussion of the project, which is also attached for your benefit, because we must mention this at the hearing, that the board or the village would take no measure that would displace anyone involuntarily from their home. And this project we're talking about tonight won't do that anyway, but I have to mention that this topic was discussed at this hearing. Also, that there are that the records kept for this grant, if you were to award one, will be accessible to the public as any other open document would be, available to the public for review unless privileged otherwise. And so it's going to be handled differently, but that has to be mentioned for the public's benefit as well. Then I will go back on Roman numeral 7C, goes back to Roman numeral 3A. I want to touch on that when I'm done discussing the project too, because that's also very important from a housekeeping standpoint. And I'll explain how that works. The project, which I go talk about here in Roman numeral 8, is water main replacement in the 3,700 to 3,900 blocks of North Atlantic Avenue. Estimated to cost the construction $232,367. You see that looking at the budget provided here, I'm proposing that you use all the grant funds for construction. You're allowed to use some of those funds for the administration, but if you do, it'll deduct from the amount for construction, because the same dollars are just change hands, so to speak, change places. I'm proposing to do that, and for the grant administration is a fee we would charge you to handle the program. If the grant picks that up, then you would end up with probably more than $198,000 total, because we would look at work that we require to handle grants over $200,000. The administrative requirements change when you get to $200,000 federally. And so that I'm proposing it's probably less, cheaper for you if we did it for you, if you hired us directly to do it. It also gets around the procurement issues we have to worry about when it comes to the federal rules. That's why I'm also proposing the engineering fee be paid locally. And with the 66,157 mean the village's share comes out to 25% of the total project. And that's the requirement anyway. So it's a matter of which money comes from where, who pays for what. But you're going to have to procure the construction services, the construction of the water main, per the federal requirement regardless, because they're paying for something. And it's better to do that administratively than do the other way around. That's why it's proposed that way. So a total of $264,367 the project, and a total grant of $198,210, just under the $200,000 threshold where it changes requirements. Some additional red tape, as it were, is added when you get to that level. So the low moderate income benefit, which was determined by an income survey of the area, project area, is 85.2%. The rating system, which I got in a paragraph form in the the public infrastructure fact sheet, if rounded up, would be 18 points out of 25. And the cutoff for 15 points, that's the way they got it grouped, is 85. So if the state agrees with the calculations that we have, I've done with the income survey, that'll give you 18 points, because they round it up, because there's a gap, because the next rate of 18 points starts at 86. Well, there's a point gap in there somewhere, so they have to do something, so they round it up. And so that should make you fairly competitive. You should not lose any points for readiness. And then it comes to the leverage. There's no deduction for that either. There should be no deduction for any other minor issues that I mentioned in this list. And the health and safety is to be determined. We have information on the pressure taken, comments on the survey from people who live out there, who wrote down their complaints about the interruption of service and breaks and things of that nature. We put all those together and make a case for health and safety threat being addressed. The minimum points you can get for that is 5, and the maximum you get is 25. Those who would get 25 points are probably under a court order to, or they have to improve their system immediately, or they have complete system failure. There's not going to be many of those that have complete system failure that are going to qualify for the most points. Most of them are going to be in the middle somewhere. And so I'm guessing you would get maybe 5 to 10 points out of that. And you should rank up somewhere in the 70-point range out of 100. 70, not 80, but 70, mid-70s range that I'm projecting. Not going to say that in the application, by the way. They'll deduct points for that if you see that. If you start doing your own scoring, put in the application, they didn't do that before, but apparently people have been doing that over and over again, and it become annoying. They think that it was swaying some of the reviewers. I don't know if that's really true or not. And but now they'll deduct points if you do that, so we're not going to do that. Would have done it anyway. So that, I think, explains the project. I didn't describe the project that more detail. It's 1,334 lineal feet, 4-inch cast iron main to be replaced with 6 inches of PVC in the blocks that I mentioned, getting from Orwell Drive to Cox Avenue. And the map is on the back. Didn't print out very well. That's from the county's GIS. It didn't look very good, but it's effective. And so now, that discusses the project. And before I want to discuss it any further or have any questions about it, I want to bring your attention to the last sheet, the yellow sheet in your handout. This is a necessary thing to follow up on a question asked me earlier. Why do we have to do a hearing? Well, it's because the federal rules call for it, they require it, and that to have input from the public. So you aren't there asking for grant funds on your own without public input. Well, they also want you to allow the public to give their input on other things they think need to be done in the community. This has nothing to do, or not necessarily anything to do, with this source of funds, that is, what might pay for it. It is intended to provide an open forum for anyone to come forward to say, or on the board, say, we should be funding a park. We should be doing something. Notwithstanding the fact that that wouldn't get paid for in this grant. Not like you're going to necessarily apply for this program, a grant to do something different. Even though it can be part of the discussion, that's not what it's for. I explained earlier that we had the hearing here because the rules say we have to have one. But this provision for this is the same as the hearing requirement, and it's the same requirement that the city of Peoria has to face. These funds come from the same source. This is appropriated by Congress and administered by the Housing and Urban Development Federal Department. And they impose these hearing requirements on the city of Peoria as an entitlement community. They don't have to compete for these funds as it does for you, who does have to compete, because you're under the same umbrella. They get the luxury suite at the hotel, and you get the economy room, and you have to bid on it. So but this is necessary. So what this, I've provided to help you out, rather than starting from scratch. My experience is we start from scratch with people no idea what you're talking about. It makes no sense to them. This gives you a sort of a starting point. If anyone has a problem with any of these, that is from number 2 on down. Number 1, I'm telling you has to stay, because that's the project you're applying grant for. That has to stay. The others are totally up in the air. You can deduct for them, add to them, find a misspelled word, correct it. It doesn't matter. You can do that as you wish, or you can leave them as they are. This is a suggestion for, it's just a starting point, with the exception number 1, like I said. I just to help you kind of give an idea of why this is being done and what it covers. Now, so far, everyone is set in stunned silence. I couldn't hear a pin drop in here because there's carpet, but if there wasn't, we probably could. Any questions on the program, the activities in front of you, the project being proposed, the housing needs, or anything else?
Jim, I have a question about
Yes.
the process now. When we submit the grant and they rank our score, then are the municipalities that are requesting grants and that make the cut, so to speak, as far as the scores go, then are grants then dished out in chronological order? Is it kind of like a FIFO system, first in, first out? The same with the FAFSA for college, where I'm okay, this municipality qualifies per their score. We've got $11 million here. They're going to get X number of dollars, and then as you get deeper into the pool, then it's like Halloween, where okay, well, you get one, because we got to ration this out.
I think it's more like grading on the curve.
Okay.
If you have 30 students in class, and they start with the highest score, go down, and then determine that below a certain score, you flunk. And that's the way this is.
Okay.
Yeah, you go to a certain score till the money runs out. And they won't cut the grant. If you ask for $200,000, they're not going to give you $150 to make you a deal. They have done that in the past. They're not going to do it now. That's what they've told us anyway. And they've not done that recently either. They have done that in the past. Like I said, arbitrarily knocking a few $1,000s off or a lot more. And sometimes crippling a project. That they say they're not going to do that. They run out of money, then that's it. As you see, the ceiling is $450. Some project will be asking for that full amount because they have much larger needs, much larger project. And yours is a lot smaller than that. That gets you nothing. If your score is the same as somebody else's, then you have an offset somewhere in the scoring. The tiebreaker is the low moderate income benefit.
Okay.
And that's in your favor. Now, we don't know how many communities out there are going to have much higher than that. I know of one that will, somewhat higher. Others are lower. So how that's going to shake out, I have no idea. We have no idea how that's going to work out. What we don't know is how well communities in the past that have made hay from the 20 points they gave for poverty score, came from the 2000 census, are going to fare the same way with this low moderate income benefit number. Because most of the communities, some of them that had high poverty scores, like to have a lot of low income people for that score. But they've known that's 14 years ago, that data is from. Now, many of those came from the same area that were getting all the grants over and over again from a previous ranking system that benefited them. But we don't have any idea how that's going to turn out, because you are one of the northern communities, fairly speaking, that has a fairly high low moderate income score, but they're a project area. So if that's where push comes to shove, if you don't lose points that I can see you can for readiness, and with only then become the factor is that the health and safety benefit score. Is it going to be 5 points? It's going to be 10 points. And you're tied with somebody else also at 10 points, and they have 60% low moderate income, you're going to get the nod. If the everything else is considered equal. That's the tie-breaking system. That's all we can tell you. Till the money, they start, sky higher score run down to run out of money. Now, this $11 million does not include money that has come in from grants that have been turned back, taken away, or something happened to them that the money's been recaptured. They can't tell you in advance what those monies are, so they can't do that, but they can't tell you that, but that's what that money may be in addition to that, what they have here. So we can't say how many are going to be funded.
So do they, would they send us a letter telling us that we've been accepted and this is the dollar amount that we would get? And then we just, I mean,
Yes.
Do they do that?
Yes.
So they
And-
will send us a letter saying that our application has been accepted for this dollar amount,
Yes.
and then we just wait
Yes.
for the money?
Now,
As long as they don't run out of money.
Right. And then that's followed up with, they'll send a grant agreement out that may be 30-plus pages long, a lot of boilerplate, that formally is your acceptance
Okay.
of that grant. And it'll specify the project detail here, because they'll fund it the way it is. They won't change it around, and they won't fund less than what you asked for. They'll give you the total amount, or you don't get it at all. They're not going to not going to split the difference. They told us they're not going to do that anymore. They haven't done it for a few years anyway. So that's how that works, yes. And they won't tell you that score in that letter. If you want to know the score, you have to call up and ask.
Oh, okay.
That's how that works.
How long does it usually take for them to accept it? I mean, is this just going to be a waiting game now, or?
Yeah, it is. And June 2nd is the deadline. I mentioned that. There is no advantage to submitting it earlier because they won't open them until after June 3rd. Because they'll all sit there unopened. Well, they won't be unopened because they're not being actually bound anymore. They're not enclosed. They'll stamp them in when they get them, so they keep the date and time because they have to be 5 o'clock on the 2nd is the deadline. But that's it. They don't review anything until you start until the next day. Then we don't know how many have been submitted until later that week, how much your competition is. And how many submitted doesn't tell you how many dollars either. We don't know that until even later.
Right.
So we're looking at a few months to several months. Your rating system, not a lot of people there to do it, so it's going to take a while. Now, any comments about that yellow sheet? If not, leave it as it is, then it'll be in the minutes that way, and that'll take care of it.
Any other questions at all for Mr. Cummings?